You see all these injuries that are happening right now, right? Well, that's one of the big reasons why I go through kicker rankings every single week, because kickers have never been more important to your fantasy team when there's all these injuries to superstar players. So we're going through the top 12 kickers for week 4 fantasy football, and I'm one of the only fantasy YouTubers who goes through kickers on a weekly basis. So please go down there and drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first tier right here, I've got Brandon Aubrey at number 1, exactly where he belongs most of the time at the New York Jets this week. So listen, with Brandon Aubrey, like this Dallas offense, I've been saying this over the past couple of days, they're impressing me way more than I thought they were going to because of their offense being run by Dak Prescott and Brian Schottenheimer, really not that bad of an offensive coach. And obviously, offense matters when it comes to fantasy football kickers. Well, the good thing about Brandon Aubrey is he's still getting down there close enough on a very consistent basis for him to continue to be perfect on all field goal attempts. And of course, he's perfect on all extra point attempts as well. Brandon Aubrey is perfect. The guy is on an offense that's moving the ball, and the Jets are the matchup this week. This is a beautiful matchup. They'll move the ball against the Jets just like they did against the Packers. Realistically, they're going to continue to move the ball all season long, and I think that Brandon Aubrey is rightfully so at number 1. And I've got Spencer Schrader at number 2. This is a very exclusive tier to me, because Spencer Schrader is the number 1 kicker in fantasy. I just don't think of him as highly as I do with a guy like Brandon Aubrey. Now, I will say this, Indianapolis' offense also extremely efficient. I mean, he's kicked 12 extra points this year and 14 total field goals. Every time they touch the ball, basically, they're at least getting you down there into range. And Schrader's missed 1 kick, and the reason I don't value him as highly as Brandon Aubrey is because he has missed a kick, and the fact that this guy's long is in the 50s. He does not have that Brandon Aubrey-sized leg. But against the Raiders, again, this is a matchup that you just want to take advantage of for a kicker because the offense is going to continue to move up and down the field. So he'll continue to get, 3-4 opportunities on a per-game basis to get a field goal and maybe a couple extra points on top of that. I really like Brandon Aubrey and Spencer Schrader inside of Tier 1 very exclusively. Now, dropping out to our next tier, I've got Harrison Butker at number 3 this week of the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're going to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars on Monday night. So with Harrison Butker, he's the kicker number 5 on the season right now, and I think there's a lot of factors that go into this, right? If you look at the offense is actually doing really well. I've been kind of saying this over the past couple of weeks. Patrick Mahomes is playing elite football. For some reason, he's not getting recognized for it right now. He looks like he could be the quarterback 1 in fantasy football, and that's without all his weapons. He has Xavier Worthy back for another week. The problem really is that Harrison Butker, I've been saying this as well, not as accurate as he once was. He's missed 3 field goals this year and 2 extra points. He is definitely not a tier 1 kicker, even though I think the offense and the matchup would constitute something like that. I can't trust Harrison Butker like I used to, but ironically, he's hit a 59-yard long field goal this year, so he has the leg, but his accuracy is not the same. So I expect mistakes almost on a weekly basis from Butker, but the amount of times the offense is getting down there in range, you can't ignore that, and that's why he's top 3. Now, number 4, I've got Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Bucks, and he's going to Seattle to play the Seahawks. This guy set an NFL record last week with a 65-yard field goal. It was pretty sweet. Chase McLaughlin, it's really interesting, sort of a Harrison Butker situation. He's got plenty of leg, but at the same time, this guy does miss kicks. He's missed an extra point this year, and he's missed 3 field goals on top of that. So it is very, very similar to this Harrison Butker situation. And I think that this matchup, it could be very similar to the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are actually playing a defense that might be good with the Jacksonville Jags. We know the Tampa Bay Bucks are playing a good defense. The Seattle Seahawks are no freaking joke. So I do worry about the matchup from an efficiency standpoint getting in the end zone. But as far as a kicker goes, Chase McLaughlin's top 5 this week because they will get him in range because they're just that good. At number 5, I've got Kaimi Fairbairn. Welcome back to your rightful place in the top 12. And he's going to Baltimore this week to take on the Ravens. Now, I think with Kaimi Fairbairn, I'm still not for certain on how I feel about him. But there's a couple different factors that make me want to put him inside the top 12 again. Number 1 is that this guy is a good kicker. He has missed 2 field goals this year. Most of the time, Kaimi Fairbairn can be relied upon. The problem has been the offense. But this matchup is so good because Baltimore's defense has looked so bad. And I will continue to say, I think they're better than people think they are because they played 3 brutal matchups. And the Houston Texans are just not a very good offense. So I predict that they'll get down there in range because the Ravens have plenty of injuries and they've looked bad enough to where it's like, yes, they will move the ball a little bit, but I think they'll stall out quite a bit. And I think Ka'imi Fairbairn will take advantage of a lot of 40 or 50-yard field goals this week. I think it's a good week for Ka'imi Fairbairn at number 5. And at number 6 to round out this tier, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks in that matchup versus Tampa. This guy is a top 3 kicker this year so far. Like this offense, I've been saying this for a couple weeks now, Darnold looks good. Like, he legitimately looks good. And it's a very similar offense to the Indianapolis Colts in a way because they've kicked 12 extra points, but they've also kicked 11 field goals. So it's like every time they have the ball, basically, they're going to give you an opportunity. Now, unlike Spencer Schrader, Jason Myers does and always has had an accuracy issue. He's kicked a 56-yard long, so we know he has the leg, but he's missed 2 field goals as well. So it's not perfect with Jason Myers, but I do still think that this guy is a good enough kicker on a good offense for fantasy kickers to be able to get down there plenty of times against a weaker defense, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you still don't have your kicker for the week, well, this is the perfect opportunity to use our automatic waiver wire tool, because what happens every week is there's a mad dash to the waiver wire once those initial priority claims run to grab the rest of the remaining best players. What our system does is automate that process so you don't have to be a part of that mad dash waking up at 3 a.m. You can sleep through the night and still get the kicker that you need for this week's matchup in fantasy football. That's a part of the premium subscription tier. But if you want to utilize a tool that's completely free and gives you live updates on the community, go utilize our polling system for start-sit decisions, and you could do it with kickers as well. So if you wanted to decide between Jason Myers and Ka'imi Fairbairn, that's a poll that you can create on the site and get live updates and help others out with their decisions as well. But with the waiver wire tool, you definitely want to avoid looking like a guy like this.
This is Ted. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season.
Now, dropping down to our next tier, I've got Joshua Carty of the Los Angeles Rams taking on the San Francisco 49ers at home tonight. Now, I think that with Joshua Carty, he's had one really good game, and the rest of it has just been kind of meh. But I will say this, and I've always said this about NFC West matchups. They're very field goal heavy. Last week, we just saw it with the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Those two teams put up a lot of field goals, and they both had kickers that scored at least 10 points in fantasy football. Well, that's because these defenses in the NFC West, they're really good defenses. In San Francisco's defense, yes, they've been injured, but I still think they are a really solid defense. I mean, Cam Little came out, had a good game against the 49ers last week while they were putting up points. I think the Rams will move the ball with relative ease, but I think that they will get stalled out because the 49ers have a good defensive coordinator with Robert Saleh. So I see Joshua Carty as a top 10 guy tonight. Matt Gay is at number 8, and he's going to the Los Angeles Chargers with the Commanders to take on the Chargers. So this week, I think Matt Gay is in a good position again. And I will make this clear. Matt Gay, for the past couple of weeks, without Jaden Daniels, has been a really good fantasy kicker. 14 points in week 3 and 18 points last week. Now, Jaden Daniels, I definitely believe has something to do with that because in the first 2 weeks, 3 and 6 points. So with Jaden Daniels back, in theory, it should be a lesser week. And I do believe that to an extent. But I still also believe the Chargers are similar to the 49ers defense to where they will get you, they'll allow yards, right? But I think they will hold from a lot of teams scoring a lot of touchdowns on them. And that's what makes me feel comfortable with Matt Gay because they're going to get down there with Jaden Daniels. He's just too good. But if Jaden Daniels is not 100%, well, I have trouble seeing that they'll be super efficient at the red zone, and Matt Gay will put up some points this week. Tyler Loop of the Baltimore Ravens is at number 9, and he's taking on the Houston Texans. So obviously without Lamar Jackson, the upside of a kicker, and really of anybody in Baltimore's offense, is not as high. I will totally agree with that and back that statement up. But I will tell you this. If you're thinking about quarterbacks and backup quarterbacks in the league, you can look to the AFC North and watch what the Bengals have done offensively with Jake Browning. I don't think that's what we're going to see with Tyler Loop and the Baltimore Ravens with Cooper Rush this week. I think that they're going to be good enough to get you down there and get a couple opportunities. This honestly feels like it could be a 12-9 type of game. And if that's the case, if Tyler Loops hit like 350-yard field goals, he's going to be fine in fantasy football. But I've got him inside the top 10 for that reason, because I do think it's a field goal heavy matchup. Dropping down to our last tier, Matt Prater of the Buffalo Bills taking on the New England Patriots at home on Sunday night. Now, Matt Prater, I do think, is in this position to where offensively, the Bills have looked really, really good. And he had a particularly strong first couple of weeks, but then they started getting really efficient on offense these past couple of weeks because they've just played lesser opponents. The Miami Dolphins, the New Orleans Saints the last 2 weeks, he had 8 points and 7 points compared to 12 points and 14 points he put up in the first two matchups versus the Baltimore Ravens and the New York Jets. I think that this New England matchup is kind of a go either way game, but I'm at the point with Matt Prater to where I want in on most Buffalo Bill offensive options, and he's one of them because they are just getting down there very consistently, at least getting him extra point attempts. Know that he's never not going to reach the end zone and get at least a couple opportunities, even if they're all extra points. But if you throw in a field goal or two in this game and New England's defense can give a couple stops, Matt Prater's going to be fine this week, and I've got him inside the top 10. Chad Ryland of the Arizona Cardinals is at 11 versus the Tennessee Titans this week. And listen, I gave this guy a hard time after last week. Even though in fantasy he was good, he made one of the most bonehead decisions at the end of that game to eventually throw the game to Seattle. This week, they're off a long week. They're going back to home to play the Tennessee Titans. I don't see how this is not a good matchup and not a good situation for Chad Ryland. The only reason him and the rest of the Cardinals are lower ranked in my rankings because I truly never know what the Cardinals will look like on a week-to-week basis. But I do know that they're going to be good enough to get you down there several times versus the Tennessee Titans. And at number 12 to round out the whole thing, Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions is going to Cincinnati this week to play the Bengals. Now, this matchup, in theory, for all offense is fantastic. And I do think Jake Bates will be a top 12 guy. But if you look at last week, for example, with Jake Bates, they were extremely efficient offensively against the Cleveland Browns, and he had 13 points. So that was a good week. But then you look back to week 3, and he had 9 points against the Ravens when they were even more efficient offensively against the Ravens. I do think that he's got a floor at this point that is really steady, and I don't think his ceiling is that high yet, and I don't think that he'll be kicking 3 field goals in this matchup versus Cincinnati because they're just going to get down there and dominate the red zone against the Cincinnati Bengals defense. So I don't think his ceiling is that high this week, but given the amount of points they're going to score, he's definitely a top 12 option this week. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below, and if you want to see the top 30 running back rankings for this week, click on this video right here.